All right, so given these two vectors, we got vector u, which is 3i minus 4j, and this vector v, which is 9i minus 12j. We want to find the dot product, we want to find the angle in between them, and then determine if the vectors are parallel, orthogonal, or neither. Now, once again, because we're dealing with vectors, right, orthogonal just means perpendicular. Okay. So let's just review this real quickly here, right? How do we find the angle between two vectors? Okay. There's a formula for this. The cosine of theta is equal to the dot product divided by the magnitude of u times the magnitude of v. Right? So there's really like 4 different steps that we're going to have to do to find the angle in between these two vectors. Okay. Now let's take a closer look at this. Right? What if cosine of theta is equal to 0, right? If cosine of theta is equal to 0, that means that the dot product, right, the dot product is equal to 0. But wait a minute, where does cosine equal 0 degrees? Where does cosine of theta equal 0? Right? If cosine of theta equals 0, then we can conclude that the angle is 90 degrees, which means then that the vectors are going to be orthogonal. Okay? So that's you get very important property to remember, right? Anytime the dot product is equal to 0, right, then the angle is always going to be 90 degrees, which means that the vectors are orthogonal. Okay. Along the same lines, if cosine of theta is equal to 1 or negative 1, okay, then the angle is going to be 0 degrees or 180 degrees, which means that the vectors are parallel. Okay. And then any other case, then you just got to calculate the angle in between them, right? It's neither going to be parallel or orthogonal. Okay. So remember, once you get the dot product, if it's equal to 0, you can just stop there and say that the vectors are orthogonal, right? Any other case, though, you got to complete the problem and work everything out. Okay. So let's take a look, right? So let's find the dot product first. Okay. So we got u dot v here. Okay. So that means we have to multiply, right? We have to multiply the corresponding components and then add the results together. So we got the I components, 3 times 9, plus the j components, which is negative 4 times negative 12, 27 plus 48, which is 75, right? That is the dot product. So once again, we cannot assume anything from this, right? Well, obviously the dot product is not 0, so these are not orthogonal vectors, but that means we've got to complete the problem, right? So we actually have to find the magnitude of u and then find the magnitude of v and plug this back into the formula, right? So what is the magnitude of u? Well, u is 3i minus 4j. So that'll be the square root of 3 squared plus negative 4 squared. Okay, so that gives us 9 plus 16, which is 25. So the magnitude of u is 5. The magnitude of v then would be 9 squared plus negative 12 squared. Okay, that gives us 81 plus 144, which is 225. So the square root of that should be 15. Okay. Now, what was that formula again? Cosine of theta equals the dot product divided by the magnitude of each vector, right? Multiplied together. Well, what do we get for the dot product? The dot product is 75. And we get 5 times 15 on the bottom here. So we get 75 divided by 75. So cosine of theta is equal to 1, right? Okay. If the cosine of theta is equal to 1, then what can we conclude about the angle? The angle between them is 0, right? 0 degrees. So that means that these two vectors are going to be parallel. Okay, just a quick note here. You don't want to say that the angle between them is 1, right? Okay, the angle is not 1. Cosine of theta is equal to 1. That means that theta, right, the angle itself is 0 degrees, which means that these angles are going to be parallel.